Mom died.
A girl named Bai tells her life story. She used to work as a director in a company and traveled a lot around the world. Now she lives in Korea with her mother and a little daughter who doesn't know anything yet. Bai always wanted to be her friend, but she couldn't, and now she wants to try to fix everything. After all, the girl doesn't remember that she died. Now Bai wants to become an archaeologist, which she has dreamed of since childhood. This story, like many others, is listened to and edited by Hyun-soo, an assistant senior manager, whose name is Harry, who works at the Wonderland Corporation. He finishes his work, and Bai finds himself at the airport, where he meets a young man. She tells him about her family, how she left her daughter with her mother, and is now flying to the desert to dig. They exchange phone numbers, and the girl goes to land. Soon she is already there. Bai enjoys everything around her, the sands, the camels, and the locals who greet her. She immediately calls her mother and shows her daughter the camel. Meanwhile, the phone rings in another apartment. Astronaut Taiju calls from space to wake up his girlfriend stewardess John in. He jokes with her, talks about the weather, and gives advice for the upcoming day. Later, the flight attendant arrives at the airport, and when her colleague invites her to the cinema, she calls the astronaut. He happily agrees to let her go to the cinema, and even offers to book tickets for the couple. However, the shocked colleague runs away. In the evening they meet again, and he shows her the peculiarities of space, while she enjoys their conversation. When suddenly, the girl asks him to sing for her, and he immediately takes out a guitar and sings about his love for her. After dinner, she goes to the hospital, where her astronaut is in a coma, in a separate room. In the office of Wonderland, the senior manager finds his assistant doing a strange thing reading poetry. Turns out their next client, a young man who dreams of becoming an actor. They develop a questionnaire for his grandmother, and the next day brings her a tablet where the student talks about his life in London, and that he will soon participate in the play. Grandma doesn't like his European outfit, and at the end of the session, she asks how she can send her grandson normal clothes. Hyun-soo shows her a menu where she can choose the product she likes, pay for it, and send it to her grandson. Later, they go to lunch, which is interrupted by a call from the girl from her parents. A mother scolds her daughter for not eating well and being alone. After hearing this, Hyun-soo pretends to be her boyfriend. Parents ask a lot of questions, and the girl agrees to pretend to be a couple. Then they go to her house. Hyun-soo looks at her family photos and realizes that her father, quite a famous poet. The guy tells the man about his mother and about his father, who left them a long time ago and does not know where he is now. The girl's father reads his poems, and the group breaks up on a very positive note. Hyun-soo leaves, and the girl washes the dishes, listening to her parents' thoughts about her new boyfriend. After which they disconnect from the broadcast. After that, she sits at the table for a long time, remembering the conversation. Meanwhile, Mama Bai shows her daughter on the broadcast of an event in kindergarten, where her daughter dances to cheerful music. The woman gladly supports her, and then tells the girl a story about the Tree of Life, which, according to legend, is located exactly where they are excavating. She advises the girl to play sports to be strong if she wants to become an archaeologist. But suddenly there are shouts behind Bai about some kind of discovery. She quickly switches off, but then remembers that she was always busy and rarely talked to her daughter. The girl returns from the excavation and calls the girl again to apologize and promise to always stay in touch. At night, a man calls her from the airport, and they talk about life for a long time. The woman admits that everything around for some reason seems unreal to her. He confirms that everything that surrounds them is just a dream. The next morning, John In receives stunning news. Her boyfriend suddenly came out of a coma. She runs to the clinic, where the doctors explain that the guy may be disoriented and have difficulties with everyday things. But over time, everything should get better. The girl smiles happily. And suddenly, an astronaut calls her because her subscription is still active. The girl resets the call and goes to Tage. He begins to remember her and soon returns home. The girl shows him their old videos, hoping that he will fully recover. At first, everything seems to be going well, but one day the guy burns his hand badly, which upsets the girl very much. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo and Harry visit another customer of their service. A middle-aged man orders a new existence for himself in Hawaii. He really wants to see the future conditions in advance, but Harry disappoints him. The client must be physically dead, or at least in a coma. Then the man asks to make him younger, and sends the couple his old photos. Hyun-soo later looks through them, and finds a photo with his mom. He compares his photo of his mother holding the baby and realizes that it is his father. Harry also notices the resemblance, and the guy calls his brother and says that he found his father. Later, the couple goes to lunch and suddenly sees the student's grandmother, who reports that she is forced to work at a second job in order to fulfill the wishes of her grandson. She recently bought him a car, but the guy didn't like it. She contacts her grandson, but he talks rudely to her and quickly disconnects. The guys are very upset by this turn of events and promise to replace the car for free. In the evening, Hyeon-soo goes to his father's room to confess everything, but the man is no longer there. Then he attends the funeral, where the deceased communicates with relatives through a big screen, joyfully greeting everyone who came to see him off. He even reminds his friend about the debt that he must repay, despite his death. Hyun-soo tries to admit who he is, but does not find the courage. Later, he contacts his father to find out how he is doing. His father assures him that everything is fine. Then they play tennis, and the guy is surprised by his father's endurance. At Bai's house, her mother asks her daughter to switch off because she has been asleep for a long time. The girl offers to bring her mother a souvenir, but she turns off the gadget without listening to the end. Then she calls Wonderland, because she intends to stop using the service and wants to tell the girl the truth. Bai wanders around the town and meets his new friend again. The woman is not surprised at all and tells him about her problems with her mother. Suddenly, he hears his name, after which he steps aside for a moment and finds himself in the office of Wonderland. It turns out that he is an employee of the company and is responsible for overseeing the deceased in their new life. He is worried about Bai's condition and is informed that his service will end soon. The man returns to the simulation. The girl is happy and shows how she used to dance. Meanwhile, the phone rings in John's apartment. Her boyfriend's friend is worried about his condition, but the girl advises him not to worry. Everything will be fine soon. She feels unwell and cannot find antipyretic medicine. Then she dials the astronaut's number. He immediately tells her where the pills are and worries about her health. The girl lies down, but soon there will be music and the sounds of people. It turns out that her boyfriend brought strangers home because he wanted to have fun. He does not understand why she is upset, and the girl leaves the house. She wanders the streets, after which she contacts the astronaut again and asks him to return to her as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Bai calls his daughter and tells her a story. Grandma demands that she put down the phone and sit down at the table. But the girl throws a tantrum, and Bai suddenly says that she will take her daughter when she grows up. This causes a surge of emotions in the grandmother, who turns off the gadget. She tells the girl that soon they will move to her city. Later, she tells Bai about it. Bai doesn't understand why they should move, because everything is already arranged here. Kindergarten, friends, and apartment. She promises to come, which infuriates Grandma. She throws the phone away, and Bai is completely confused and can't figure out what happened. Meanwhile, the stewardess is preparing for the next flight and quickly leaves the house, forgetting about the phone. At this very moment, an astronaut calls her. Taiju picks up the phone, but then the stewardess returns and, seeing this, loses her temper. He rummages through her things, is rude, and does not look like his former self at all. She runs outside and answers the cosmonaut's call. He talks about how the Earth is blue and beautiful and wishes her a good working day. In the evening, the stewardess returns home and suddenly sees that their house is on fire. Later, she is shown a video showing Taiju leaving the apartment shortly before the fire started. But the stewardess insists that he has nothing to do with it. They are released because there is no evidence. She asks him to be careful, but he insists on his innocence. The girl informs him that she is flying to Barcelona tomorrow and suddenly starts crying. In the evening, the manager calls the student with the help of his grandmother's gadget. He's annoyed because he's very busy with rehearsals. He is outraged that his grandmother did not buy him another thing, but the girl informs him that the old lady has died. The service will be terminated. The recordings of their conversations will be saved for future requests. The next morning, Grandma and daughter Bai arrive at the airport. But while the woman is momentarily distracted, the girl runs away. Grandma reports this to the police, and at this time, Bai calls. She inundates her mother with questions, and she can't stand it and tells her that she is not the mother of this imaginary woman. Bai hangs up, and at that moment she receives a notification that the service is suspended. At the same time, Taiju stays at the airport and informs the flight attendant that he will fly with her. At the same second, the cosmonaut calls. Taiju is jealous of his caller, and the girl shows him his double. Taiju is stunned by this fact, and the girl says that she missed him very much. She lets him fly with her, but he runs away. After that, he sits for a long time in the airport waiting room, watching the planes. Meanwhile, Bai wakes up to his daughter's voice. She opens her eyes and sees a girl who is happy that she has found her mother. The woman runs after her. They move to different places, but the woman can't catch up with the child anywhere. Mother's phone is not answering. Bai gets into the car and drives away from the archaeologist's camp, despite their persuasions to stay. Suddenly, she finds herself in exactly the same situation as the first time she arrived in the desert. The same camels and drovers who greet her. Bai turns around, makes a circle, and collides with the teamsters again. The woman turns around again, and suddenly sees that a sandstorm is coming. She turns on the gas and drives blindly through the hurricane. And in Wonderland, the Bai activation signal is triggered. The manager and her assistants do not understand how this can happen, but the woman is approaching the operating system, which threatens a system-wide failure. Problems start in all places. The weather deteriorates, lightning strikes. At this point, a service employee is sent to Zabai. He catches up with her car, pulls the woman to the ground, and tells her that everything around is a dream. She has to believe in reality, and it will come. Suddenly, Bai sees a huge burning tree in front of him. The system signals an extreme load, and Hyansu suggests deleting all Bai files. But his boss unexpectedly objects, because it is impossible to recreate a woman exactly as she was. She knows this because she did the same thing to her parents and now regrets it. The girl approaches the monitor, on the other side of which Bai appears. They reach out to each other and suddenly everything collapses. The system starts shutting down. The manager understands that Bai needs something besides their services. She asks to open a woman's profile, and Bai suddenly finds himself at the airport. At this time, Taiju receives a call from an unknown number and, answering it, hears Bai's voice, begging to help her find her daughter. At this moment, the guy sees the girl running out of the office door. He manages to save her from an oncoming maintenance car and return her to the terminal. The girl says she wants to fly to her mother. He tells her that his mother called him and asked him to wait for her. But then their grandmother finds them. The girl asks to call her mother, and her grandmother gives her the phone. Bai immediately responds and says she's at the airport. The shocked grandmother can't understand how this is possible. They're looking for a woman, and she suddenly says she's dead. However, the girl still asks her to call and tell stories. Mom agrees to do whatever she wants. After that, the girl thanks her grandmother for everything she does for her daughter, and promises to be a good mother in the next life. At this time, the workers of Wonderland see how the system comes to life, although they do not understand what happened. At this time, John Ying calls, who wants to cancel her subscription because her Taiju has returned. They later reconciled. The girl remembers all the good things that happened between them, hugs the guy, and does not let him go. An astronaut in his world tells her that he is coming home. A service suspension notification arrives on her phone. At the airport, Bai talks to a service employee again. He wishes her a happy journey, and the woman says goodbye to him. After a while, Hyansu meets his mother and calls his father. Recognizing the man, the woman apologizes for leaving him alone without explanation. He forgives her and asks her to give him her phone number. A world in which the living cannot forget the departed, and the dead remain a part of the memory of the living. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe not. But the fact remains, artificial intelligence is already changing our reality.